one-time government increase of $251,000 from last year. That has to come off. As we went through the staffing budget, we saw that there were duplicate salaries in there for gifted and ESOL. So we had one position and one name that was there 3 times. So we special education teachers back to the DPA staffing from contractors. Increase of the custodial personnel. Last year it was split. At one point they were contractors and then they moved. So we added that full term or the full year of salaries back to the FY25 budget. So that all adds up to an increase of $178,836.25 for salaries.
Certified teachers.
One second. $55,000. For just those increases.
Salary and the fringes together, what would that, did y'all calculate that?
For the overall budget with 2,500 with just the certified positions, and I could figure that out if I could go to the spreadsheet. However, I'm portion of expense on this overall scenario.
We kept it separate because it was like a lot of information to kind of digest when you do salaries and benefits. But I can grab my laptop and run it.
Okay.
One second. So the next thing,
I have a question. When you say certified teachers for your increase, are you counting certified teachers with complete certification, or are you including teachers that are on provisionals?
Dr. Bostic.
Teachers, so provisionals, waivers, as well as the professional certified.
Have any other questions about the salary portion? Okay. All right, you go ahead.
Okay. So the next part is benefits. There was an increase of $425,000. Employers' contribution rate went up. It was 19.81. $803. The increase of premiums paid by DPA for health insurance, health, medical, and vision is $174,296. We did account for all staff electing to use or sign up for DPA insurance. I'm sure not all selected to sign up last year, but everybody that's full-time and that's eligible to receive those services or those benefits, we did budget for that for the full year.
Kaiser with the same benefit elections, and so when we went with the total source, this scenario and how much the benefits were.
Okay. And what about, not that I'm suggesting y'all do this now, but was the decision made not to pursue getting into the state health benefit plan, or what?
So, no, the decision was not made, it was put on hold. We brought that up, I think it was October, when we talked about the state health benefit plan, and we're now within the window to be able to apply again. However, in the last bill that was passed, those benefits have gone up considerably since when we first initiated. I think it was at $600 was the contribution, and now it's over $1,000. So we have to redo the numbers on that to see if it even makes sense for us right now. And so that's where we are. But no, we haven't taken it off the table. We were found not eligible for the state health benefit plan. However, once you become rechartered or your charter is reauthorized, you have 3 months to consider it again and then pull it in, and then put an application in. And so yes, we are still considering it, but now that that bill has come down, it might change the benefits if that looks, if it's beneficial to us.
Okay. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, there's an increase of $162,568.75 in FICA. Unemployment was 10,000 and workers' comp was 12,000. So that adds up to the total of $425,715.89. There's an increase in those because there's an increase in salaries overall.
Okay. And when you say increase, you mean increase because of the and does that add up to
You really can't say if you're gonna, like, how much you're gonna spend, like, per month.
if it was counted into July, that wouldn't be accurate.
Yeah,
Because
over the months, because it's for the fiscal year. Unless it's going to end FY '26 in like August, since it started in September, then it would still be the same.
well, no, okay, so they would get their regular salary until September, as opposed to for the full fiscal year.
Right, but then the only increase would be the $2,500. And then in that case, you would have to decide if you're going to pay it over the remaining 9 months of the contract, or you're going to run it for a full 12 months. It really depends on what the teacher contract looks like, but because we're doing it for a fiscal year, they're not going to get more than $2,500 in one fiscal year. So it covers the full year. I think what you all are looking for is like, okay, well, August they'll get regular payment, but September they would get regular payment plus that
Big
portion
bump
of
up.
$2,500. But as long as the full $2,500 is paid through the end of the fiscal year, which would be June of next year, then it's still covered. It's not like they're gonna get, well, it's really
It should be,
depends on,
it should be a little bit less.
it depends on how you all decide to pay it. If you're gonna pay it through June, or are you gonna pay it through August?
So our current contract runs from July 1 to June 30th.
Right.
With the first paycheck for teachers on the contract is saying August 15th.
But because of the service would have ended, or they would have earned it by June 30th, you still have to accrue it as a payable. So it still reflects as if they would have earned the full $2,500 in that fiscal year. So it shouldn't be less.
Well, it would be a little bit less, because they wouldn't get it till September.
But that's a cash management, that's not a budgetary item, that's cash flow.
No, it'd be a little bit of a budget savings. I mean, the 2,500 is the increase for the full year, right? And let's say if you only do it for 75% of that, the budgetary impact would only be 75% of that cost.
Right, but I think we have to decide now how you're going to pay it. Because for us, when we're doing the budget, we know that there's an increase for the year, and we're budgeting for the year. So if you all say, okay, well, we're going to run it from September to August, then yes, we can make that adjustment, but that decision has to kind of be made. And I just personally think it's kind of premature to make that decision, because we don't know who all going to get it, and we're still waiting to figure out which, I guess, data they're going to use to determine certification status. Is it last year? Is it this October? I think there's a lot of moving pieces to kind of solidify that. I think we could correct that with a budget adjustment once more details come out.
Okay. So then the 55,000 that you included is the governor's version for all certified staff, or just certified teachers? Which version is this? Is this just teachers or staff? Or certified staff?
I think it's teachers. Dr. Foster, you would have to look at yeah, because it's not in here. I believe it's teachers.
So teachers only, so that's not the governor's version? Because the governor said certified staff, so that would include certified administrators as well, right? And other, I don't know, who else what's another certified position as an example? Like a counselor, would that be? Social worker, okay. So the governor includes those positions, because the way it was worded, it said certified staff.
Yes, it says increase salaries for certified teachers and certified employees by 2,500. Okay, so that's this scenario is for certified, is it did certified teachers. The next scenario does include all staff,
Okay.
all certified staff and staff.
Okay. So do we want to move on to the next scenario then? Okay.
It's 560, and there's an increase of 6,500 for all teaching positions. It includes a $5,000 increase for school counselor, social worker, instructional coach, instructional specialist, and media specialist.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, so on the summary sheet, just going back, on the first scenario, we would have a surplus of 370,000? Is that right?
On scenario
Yes.
one,
Yes, that's correct.
In this scenario, we would have a surplus of $1,600.
Yes.
So we would barely squeak through.
Yes.
Okay. Scenario. Where's the scenario? Okay. You don't have the heading, it doesn't say. This is scenario 2?
Yes.
scenario two,
Okay, we would barely break even with scenario 2.
Yes.
Okay, and what's the explanation again for scenario 2?
It's an increase of salaries and benefits of $1,101,703. That is split up between salaries and benefits. Salaries increase of $465,836.25. And then benefits is $635,867.15. I'll jump back to salaries to kind of $500 stipend for certified teachers to $6,500 for all teaching positions, and then $5,000 for the school counselor, school social worker, instructional coach, instructional specialist, and media specialist. So that is the main difference from scenario 1 and scenario 2.
and the $2,500, can you explain about how the $2,500 governor increase would be absorbed in this scenario?
Yeah, we we discussed using the governor's $2,500 as, sorry, to kind of replace funding in the operating budget, not adding an increase or using language as if, certified teachers and certified staff would get $2,500 governor stipend plus $4,000 DPA stipend. And just by doing it across the board, and then using the reimbursements from the governor to kind of subsidize the income.
Wait, I'm sorry, say that one more time, I'm not sure I followed that.
Yeah, so we talked about, or we discussed not breaking the stipend up for certified teachers and certified staff to explicitly say they'll get $2,500 governor and $4,000 DPA, while your non-certified teachers will get $6,500 DPA stipend. So we just used it verbiage across the board as all teaching positions would get $6,500
Okay.
increase.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, when the money comes from the governor, don't we have to explicitly say that it's $2,500 per teacher? Because I think if we say I think Atlanta got in trouble last year about this, that they were absorbing it in their budget or something about that.
I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, that's what they said. You know, we've given you a raise. We've
But you
given-
didn't get,
Right, and they made them go back and say explicitly this 2,500 comes
It's
from
for
the
this.
governor's bill, so it has to be explicit.
I was going to
I would think.
suggest,
I'm asking.
since we're just getting since the committee is just looking at this additional funding for today, and we're so close on the bottom line, I would recommend that we go with the I would recommend we go with the governor's $2,500, because people know that that was passed, and teachers are going to be looking for that, and then come back to the committee and possibly look at, like, once the fiscal year starts, and see how we're spending and see how our funding is, to come back to the board and see if there's additional changes we can do with the salary. And, because if we're rocking and rolling and we see the revenue coming in from Dekalb, then we can make a better decision to see if we're going to be cutting it super close, or if we'll have wiggle room to do some additional things to the salary. But if it were me, I think we should err on the side of including the amount for the governor's increase based on how it was worded, and then we can come back and do additional things if funding permits.
I'm wondering if it's possible to maybe break out the governor's salary so that we can know what that explicit amount is within this budget, and then identify how much the DPA contribution was. My concern is that we are interviewing, and we're in the process of trying to attract our teachers, and this has been a challenge for us to overcome in attracting and retaining. So we have people that accept at the interview, and then once the offer letter comes, it becomes a different scenario for them and their families. And so I would suggest if we could have that, and maybe at the second hearing, or at the we may have a recap of what that would look like when we break out the salaries in that manner for this scenario. But that's just my consideration, and I hope the committee can think about considering.
So going forward, so how do we want to proceed as a committee? So, we have a dollar amount. I'm not comfortable with scenario 2 just yet, just because we're cutting it very close to being in a deficit. Like $1,600, that's very close. That's break even, almost. That's a big jump, yeah. And so just because I don't feel like.
So the thought process was just looking at the overall atmosphere of teachers in Georgia, and teachers in our surrounding counties, and teachers in our surrounding, even a couple of miles away from us, charter schools, and trying to remain closely competitive, as close as we can competitively in salary for that, so that we can attract and retain the best teachers for our scholars. And as I speak, we had our leadership retreat today, and yesterday we spoke about our special ed, we spoke about our corrective action plan, and the crux of the support of all of that will fall on the skill and will of the teachers that we attract and hire and retain. And so that was at the forefront of my mind when I went to this scenario, and that was my part of the rationale that I wanted to speak about with the committee. Of course, I don't mind doing it in the budget hearing. Back, we'd be able to do the scenarios and run those through the committee at the time, because if we were able to go into our spreadsheets, we would be able to run a $3,000 scenario or a $4,000 scenario, and we would know what that looks like.
I do have a question. So I'm not saying that all staff aren't important, because everyone helps make the school great and, students' needs. But if the goal and the priority right now is attracting and retaining teachers, qualified teachers, to help with our student data. Why is a $5,000 increase being added to this budget for other roles and it wasn't added in the other budget? Like, I'm just wondering, would it be better from a financial perspective if the goal is to keep highly qualified teachers to focus on teacher salaries right now, and then maybe later, if the funding is there, then look at supporting other staff?
And predicting a little bit of a surplus there, right? So if we went with scenario one, are there other things we could do? Like we talked about, like, not necessarily, I mean, well, we talked about signing bonuses because we had it when we did ESSER funds. We also talked about, what do we call it? I don't know. Not longevity incentives, but I don't know what you would call it, for returning staff, to attract retention bonuses for returning staff. As, you know, they're one-time things, but it doesn't lock us in until we see what the funding looks like. So, you know, overall, and I know when people are looking at their salary and their compensation, they're looking at the long term, but in the short term, you know, we could be competitive with those things without being locked in until we can see how our funding situation pans out. So y'all haven't prepared that for today, but that's something, you know, since the rest of the board is here, something that you all can consider. Well, we mentioned it before, and if you didn't prepare it, you know, we still have a board meeting coming up. We still have 2 budget hearings to go through, so if that's something.
Just a little bit of professional pushback, rather, is if we use the available funds to provide stipends, or not stipends, but like those bonuses, or sign-on bonuses or retention bonuses, then incentives, yes, thank you, incentives, then that might decrease the amount of funds that we have available to add to salaries. And so I think I want to make sure that I'm hearing correctly that we would move in a direction of looking at retention incentives, or incentives instead of the salary increases.
No, I'm saying that might be an option, but what I'm saying is, so you all presented scenario 2, with all of our federal funds being gone, you'll be able to get a better picture of how we go throughout the year. So in terms of long-term increases, minute meeting. And
The staff who would be getting a $5,000 increase, and then see what that looks like from a budget perspective to keep the 6,500 for teachers. That way, the focus is still increasing the salaries, making us competitive, but then we are also ensuring that other staff have some sort of incentive.
say the beginning part of it.
but it also includes a $5,000 increase for 5 other roles. So when I'm saying teachers, that way we are still competitive with surrounding schools, and then look at creating those incentives for those staff members who were included in the $5,000 increase, and just to see where it lands us. That might help increase us from being so close to the bottom line, but that way we're still being competitive and getting the teachers. Because from my understanding, that is the nucleus right now, that's the focus, especially with all the different districts coming out with their new pay scales. I don't know, it's just a thought.
$2,500 for all and the $2,500 for the certified, all certified staff. And then the scenario that you just mentioned with the $6,500 with the $2,500 governor, and then DPA, it's spelled out specifically, and then a incentive for the other staff that are not included in the teaching staff. So those are the three. I can't say it again. You're gonna have to look at the recording. Okay. All right. So those are the three scenarios that we can go back to looking at.
Okay. But for now, I think, as a committee, I think we should vote on one of these scenarios. And then you can bring that information, you can prepare that information before the board meeting. And it'll be the board's pleasure as to what direction they want to go in. But for this committee, I think we need to make a decision. Okay. So are we ready to entertain a motion? Oh, let me ask a question. For 480, what did you all do for the 480 scenario with the salaries?
The 480 budget actually mirrors the scenario number one with an increase of $522,220.07. Okay. I'll yield to Ms. Lee.
On your 480 budget, you have a different number of positions.
Correct.
The position should be the same. In the starting budget, in the original budget, in one you got 73 and the other one you got 65. So do we have 65 positions or 73 positions? It should be 73? Okay. So if our enrollment dropped, we would lose positions, okay, so we would go from 73 to 65 if enrollment dropped to 480 in this scenario, okay. And the bottom line, we would have a little bit of a surplus of 87,000 at the 480 level. And it mirrors scenario one. Okay. Okay, so now. Scenario one, you have a copy of so you have increased salary expenses, and you have a separate one for benefits, for the narrative? Okay. Okay, is there a motion? wait a minute. So, let me interrupt you 1 second. Scenario 1, this is, can we amend this motion to make sure that this is the governor's 2,500?
Yes.
For all certified staff?
Yes.
Okay. So can you restate that? So that it's clear that this is to include the governor's $2,500 increase for all certified staff.
Yes. Okay. So I move that we increase salary expense to include the governor's 2,500 increase for all certified staff.
Provided that the amount will be, the correct dollar amount will be
Yes.
forthcoming?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Is there anything else that we need to talk about? Anything else we need to talk about as far as the budget's concerned?
Not this motion. No, the next one is benefits.
Oh, benefits. Thank you. Almost forgot. I was so ready to move on. Okay. Can I get a motion for the benefits item?
I move that we increase benefits based off of the $2,500 salary increase for the governor's 2,500 salary increase, with the amended amount reflecting the correct amount.
Right, provided that you will update the benefits based on the updated change. Okay.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Can I get a motion to? Okay, Finance Committee is adjourned. That is Finance Committee. Okay, now we can, oh, Mr. Berger, you want to budget here?
Good evening. This is a meeting of the Dekalb Preparatory Academy Governing Board. The purpose of this meeting is to hold our budget hearing for fiscal year 2020. Roberta Walker.
Kathy Ann Young.
Bridget Robinson.
Wanda McKay.
Janelle Wilhite?
Lenise Bostic.
Thank you. Tonight's agenda is to have the budget hearing. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda for the budget hearing for FY25.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to the Finance Committee Chair.
All right, thank you. What's being considered?
Good evening. So as of, this is our proposed budget for DeKalb Preparatory Academy. This is based off of our QBE revenues as well as expenditures. And so I'll go off of our original budget and then our proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So our original budget for QBE, our quality-based education funding earnings for our original budget was $6,594,770.11. And we are proposing that our earnings are going to increase $6,839,020.85 for a difference of $244,251. Our other revenue that we are also including, our original budget, we had budgeted at $242,071.64, and we are anticipating the same amount at $242,000, $71.64. Our school nutrition, $2,230, and we're budgeting the same amount for a total revenue for our proposed budget of $7,983,400.49, which is a difference of $1,717,309. And the difference is we are looking at our ESSER funding. Our original budget for our current fiscal year includes ESSER funding, and that ESSER funding was in about over $1 million. And that is not included in next year's budget, so we had to make some adjustments and changes to include not receiving that funding. So last year, we had 73 FTE positions. This year, we're proposing to have 80 or include 80 FTE positions, which is a difference of 7 positions in this budget. Our building expense, our original budget was $1,152,406.72, and we are decreasing that by $677,997,000. So our proposed budget is $474,409.65. We had contractors' expenses from our original budget of $1,136,041.24, and we are reducing that by $488,552 for our proposed budget to be $647,489.38. And you'll see the difference in the contractors by where not including, we had in our original budget, we had our special education teachers, part of those were funded through that contractor budget. We also had our facilities and maintenance that was also contracted, included in that contractor budget. And so we have not moving forward with including those in this year's budget, and that adds up to the decrease. Equipment, we had original budget was $265,288.74, and we decreased it by $229,789 for a budget for this year for $35,500. Then our software, our original budget was at $162,779.90. And for this year, our proposed budget amount is $132,403.71 for a difference of $30,376. Our supplies expense, last year's budget was $354,928.18. And our proposed for this year is $183,055.72. And then we have others, other expenses totaling $385,377.44. And we're decreasing that by $177,030, which for a total for our proposed budget is $208,347.12. We're proposing salary and benefits for last fiscal year was $5,327,368.90, and the proposed budget for this fiscal year for the proposed budget is $5,931,921.04, which is a difference of $604,552. For total expenditures for the proposed budget being $7,613,126.61. And that will leave a net cash surplus of $370,273.88.
And just can you explain what the changes are in salaries? What that includes?
Yes. So now I'm on page 2 of the summary. And so the salary includes an increase in salary expenses for 24-25 by $178,836.25. And it would include $2,500 for certified teaching staff, certified staff.
Certified staff.
Certified
And-
staff.
And the amounts will be updated to reflect the total for certified staff,
Correct.
for salaries and the fringes.
Correct. And so we currently have an increase in salary expense, but we're eliminating the one-time governor stipend that was received last year. We're taking that out of the budget, removing duplicate salaries that were included in the salary spreadsheet, adding the special education teachers to the salary budget, adding the school nurse to the salary budget, adding the security personnel and the custodial personnel to the salary budget. And so that would explain the salary increase as well as the benefit increase. And as for the benefits increasing, TRS, the contribution for employers has increased from last year's budget was 19.81%, was the responsibility of the school to contribute to TRS, and that amount has gone up to 20.78% of the salary. So that's quite a big increase, and then there's going to be another increase next fiscal year, so we can kind of just forecast and think ahead of what that will look like for next budget. And then we also, the increase of health premiums, as well as workers' compensation, payroll tax, and unemployment tax that was increased due to the increase in salaries.
Okay, and are there any questions pertaining to the 560 scenario? Can you scroll down to the narrative? So in everyone's packet, so after, that's kind of a high-level summary, but if you scroll down, keep going. Okay, so those are, each one of, so when you get to that page that she's showing on the screen, that's each change item that the finance committee voted on. Did you all update those pages to say the committee voted on it
Yes.
at the bottom? So that they know that, no,
Voted
that-
recommended. Yes, these are recommended. They're all recommended.
yeah, it's not filled out, that's what it said before. It's supposed to have the
Is it
date.
Vote recommended. Okay, I'll put the date reviewed. I put recommended, but yes.
It was on there when that's like, I don't know. It should have the date and, like, in one of them we tabled, remember, it was supposed to be updated.
Okay, well, this one was the salary.
Because we just recommended
did
that
that.
one.
It said recommended, but no date and time.
It was supposed to be dated, each change, so who's going to update, make sure those are
So,
updated?
yeah.
Because I don't want anyone asking, was this approved by the finance committee? Like, that document should stand alone, it should be in our document, so if anybody goes back and look, they can see that it was voted on the committee. So it needs to have the date when we voted on it at
I'll
the
go back
meeting.
and put today's date on this one.
Yeah,
And-
because our salary stuff was actually tabled until today.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that needs to be updated before the board meeting. Okay, and so, and you go through, so each one of those changes, keep scrolling, Dr. Bostic.
It's, okay, I'm gonna go back down to,
No, you're right, in that one, yeah.
no,
So it has all the backup documentation and the justification for each item. And they're reducing all of the line items, just mainly because of the reduction in funds related to ESSER going away.
correct.
Yeah, okay. Are there any questions?
I have a question about the salary. So this 2,500 that is being included in a teacher raise per se, this is just being proposed. This is just what the governor is proposing in his budget, right?
Correct.
Okay, so is there a possibility, since this particular scenario leaves us with a $370,000 surplus, can we go back and look at giving an increase with DPA's funds to our staff. And then to see how, what, if we can afford that. Not saying that we need to give all 370,000 of it. However, we can do more than the 2,500 from the governor. Perhaps we could match that, perhaps we could do better than that. But can we go back and look at that?
Yes, we'll go back and do those, do scenarios running, I guess, 2,000, another 2,500, and then maybe 3,000, and then just seeing what those look like up until we get to, well, not into a deficit. And so we can run those salaries so you can see what all of them look like. We'll do it every 1,000.
Okay.
Maybe that'll work.
And just make sure you do the full cost
Okay.
with the fringes.
Right.
Because the fringes will, the retirement will increase.
Right.
The
Okay.
FICA will increase.
TRS will increase.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the full cost at different, options that the board can consider since we do have a surplus.
Okay. So we're going to run the same scenario at the 1,000. So we're at 2,500 with current, then at 3,500, 4,500, 5,500 until we reach not a deficit.
Okay.
Okay.
Question, if it wasn't a salary increase, but like an incentive increase,
Like
would
a
that,
one-time?
like a one-time, would that impact benefits, TRS, and all those numbers?
It would, now, I don't know if sometimes when you get a one-time payment, it'll impact FICA. Like sometimes, like I remember the way the state would do it, sometimes when you get like a separate bonus or incentive payment, as you will, sometimes they wouldn't include that on the TRS, but it'd be taxed differently. Like I think usually it was I don't know, 20-something% tax rate. It was like a set rate sometimes for those one-time incentive payments.
And the reason why I asked is to see if it's put in, if we utilize it in a incentive rate, could that mean that staff get more? That was my question, really, my thought.
Oh.
Because it wouldn't be impacting other numbers.
Yeah, they'd still get taxed. Can you check with payroll, your ADP?
Yeah, it's 20, the federal tax bonus tax rate is 22%.
20, I knew it was like 20-something
Yeah, you were
percent, but
right
it was
there.
like one-time payment. Yeah.
Go ahead. You finished with that part? My other question is concerning the supplies line. Are we currently at a 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-1 with computers for our students?
That's actually it's in our equipment line, right?
Equipment, right.
Yes, so we are, between the new purchases and our current line, if we're at 560 or 570, we are at 1-to-1. If we get 590, we won't, but we're not gonna go to 590.
Wait, say that one more time, Dr. Buster?
So if we're at our 560 enrollment, we're at 1-to-1 with the combination of the new computers that we purchased.
Oh, okay.
As well as our current computers that we had already on hand. But if we go up to our enrollment, maybe around 585, if we're close to that, then we won't be 1-to-1.
Well, okay.
Just from a academic standpoint, will we even go up that high since we're supposed to have smaller
Yeah,
class
so
sizes?
our limit is 585, and so, no, we're not gonna go over. We're not gonna go there.
Those are all the questions I have. Anybody else have any questions?
I would just, thank you for printing these out, so then everyone can look at the actual narrative that is being proposed for each one. can you go over the contingency budget and what,
I do have one question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
In the other expenses, there's a decrease. And then when I look here, it says we're eliminating school-funded field trips. Can you kind of speak towards what that means in terms of the opportunities our kids will have to go do extended learning?
So currently we had budgeted funds in for field trips. And so our field trips are funded by our students. And so moving forward, we took that money out because our field trips are going to be funded and have been by our students. And what has been occurring is we made it the reconciliation of field trips and people who go on field trips and what we've paid, because typically we have to buy the tickets beforehand, and then we're waiting on the money from the field trips. And so we're looking at our processes and procedures with field trips and how we take up funds and account for that so that we're making sure that they balance on our field trips. So we're not taking any fund or any field trips away from our students at all. We are really just need to organize how we're doing the field trips to make sure that they are completely student funded.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And we do have teachers that, for students that aren't able to go or may have challenges with paying, we do have teachers that have, donated funds, we have fundraisers, and we do have things, other incentives for us to be able to help fund those families and students. But we do depend on our families to be partners with us on field trips.
One thing that I did forget, Dr. Bostic, to mention during our earlier committee meeting, one thing we talked about in the last committee meeting, we need a list of the contracts and the subscriptions. Oh, I thought that was related to a new provider. Let's ask her. No, but I'm not sure. Ask her just because we talked about that, but I forgot. We have another question, Dr.
Sorry,
Bostic.
I have a question. On the other expenses where it says reduce internet costs by 40%, or no, by $4,752.36, and then a reduction of 40% in other expenses, does that mean, is it decreasing because we found a new provider that's cheaper?
So combining those into the one DPA account, that's what we're looking at.
Cheaper.
Mhm.
And all of these contracts and subscriptions are built into the budget that was already, okay.
We need one more copy.
And these are all the ones that were proposed to keep.
These are the ones that are being proposed to keep, yeah.
Is STEM scopes our curriculum that we use for science, or is it used as a support to something else?
It's as a support to our current science, and so we look at the standards that are on Georgia resources, and then, or Georgia suitcase rather, and then that supports that. So those are like the experiments and everything that go along with that. So it's in
I have two.
conjunction, yeah, with that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Here's another one. I was like, how did I get something? What about billpay.com? Or bill.com, can't, is it? I don't see that one listed.
Under technology annual contracts, at the bottom where it says corporate overhead and
Bill.com.
charter boards, and then bill.
I see it, yeah, thank you.
Affected that they have access to the full.
Yeah, we find it more effective that they have access to the full, because that also involves, it's the singing software that goes along with it that's included in that subscription as well. So it's really 2 in 1. And then also it has lesson plans and already drafted PowerPoints within that Nearpod subscription. And so and then they're also including some type of AI software that will, AI enhancement rather, so that will make it a more robust system for us.
Are there any other questions? Okay, I guess our public comment period?
I can look in the chat. I don't see anything in our chat.
Okay, Mr. Bird, I'll turn it back over to you.
Dr. Blackshear?
Oh, we do have,
You just turned it off.
Schools is first year teacher. The top of our scale is probably $3,000 more than that. To schools who math was showing they're growing, with special ed showing that kids moved and passed tests this year. They are doing the job. I am just concerned that finance seems to be driving when you can go somewhere else and get a $15,000 increase. And we are not even considering anything but $2,500 that the governor's giving us, and no money is even coming from DPA to even consider that these people have to. Do we, what I want to say, well, children are the center. And everything coming in should be driving for the success of the child. I'm just concerned with the lack of giving the teachers a raise. And we about $6,500. I said, well, how much will we have in reserve if we cut it 500? How much will we have in reserve if we cut it 1,000? How much will we have in reserve if we cut it 1,500? But just to only give us the state, I just got fooled. I almost couldn't come up. Is how I have always seen you all. And I don't think it has changed. I do believe that we must have the bottom line. I do. And we and so on, materials and things, we could scores. But and the systems are.
Thank you for that comment, Dr. Blackshear, and trust me, the reason it's taking us so long is because we feel exactly the same way you do. And remember that we have to also take into account what can we sustain, and that's what we've been working on all this time. What can we sustain? And that's why we asked the Finance Committee to go back and rework their numbers again. This is only our first budget hearing. Remember, we have to go through two. So we're still working. They're still working. Thank you for your comment. Can we move on to the 480 scenario quickly, please? Are we ready to? Did we already do that?
Can you just explain, did you already explain just explain the difference, or did you already explain the difference?
Just the
I can't remember.
difference. Okay.
Did you go through that one? Yeah.
So
Can you just
Number of FTE positions.
Correct.
Is what's different in the 480 budget, as if we have less students or fewer students, we would need fewer staff. And so that's the overall difference in the 480. We still maintain some of the other, the same cuts that we did in the original 560 budget. We still maintain those cuts in this budget as well. $6,397.52, and that will leave a net I'm sorry, that was the revenues. The expenditures are $6,918,419.96, and the net cash would be $87,977.56.
Okay. Okay.
School?
So far, we have, okay, I have an overview. So our first grade, we have a waiting list for all grade levels with the exception of second grade. Second grade, we're still looking for our students and still looking for students. But there's a waiting list for all other grade levels that confirmed and enrolled.
Is that, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from our viewers online? Thank you very much. Our next budget hearing will be next Tuesday. Next Tuesday evening, 6:30 p.m. is our board meeting, and we will also have our budget hearing at our next meeting. And so we want the Finance Committee then to come ready with the other plans. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance this evening. May I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the budget hearing for this evening.
I second the motion.
Motion and second that we adjourn our meeting, budget hearing meeting. The time is now 8:32. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Good night.